When I refused to marry a man my father chose, he called me a disgrace and publicly disowned me. I lost my home, my job, my name. For years, he paraded my sister as the perfect one, until his business was audited, and I was the lead investigator. When he walked into the room and saw me sitting at the end of the table, he turned white. I smiled and said, "Remember when you said I'd never amount to? I wasn't supposed to take that file." It sat on the edge of my desk, thick and ominous, like it was waiting for me to flinch. Kepler Holdings. My old last name. My blood. My past. I stared at it for hours that day, hands hovering, nerves prickling. I told myself to pass it on. Let someone else handle it. But the more I thought about how my father destroyed me without a second thought, the more I realized this was my chance to finally look at him, not as a daughter, but as the kind of man he really was. Growing up in Annapolis, it was always about image. My father ran everything like a campaign. Dinners were formal. Conversations were controlled. Mistakes were punishable. I wasn't allowed to cry in public or show weakness, and I sure as hell wasn't allowed to have my own opinions. From the outside, we looked perfect. Inside, it was like walking on a frozen lake, just waiting for something to crack. I used to think if I worked hard enough, he'd see me, really see me. But that moment never came. What finally broke me wasn't just the arranged marriage. It was how fast he cut me out when I said no. There was no hesitation. No second conversation. One word. Disgrace. And my whole life was erased. I remember sitting in my car that night, staring at the front gate of our family home, now locked against me. It was raining. I didn't cry. I just sat there, numb, thinking, what now? I bounced around for years. Lived in a basement apartment with no windows. Waitressed during the day, studied at night. I was broke. I was angry. I was so deeply alone that some nights I forgot what my own voice sounded like. But I kept going. I stopped needing people to believe in me. I started believing in the quiet work, one small step at a time. It took everything I had to build a new name. I stopped checking social media. I blocked Elise. I pretended none of it mattered. But it did. She was everywhere. On local news panels. Hosting charity events. Smiling that soft, obedient smile like the world belonged to her. And it did in a way. Because she never said no. She stayed the daughter my father wanted. I was the one who got cut. So when the audit fell into my hands, I didn't see it as revenge. Not at first. I saw it as an obligation. A duty. But every page I turned, every misfiled expense, every hidden offshore asset, it all chipped away at the perfect image I'd grown up under. My father wasn't just controlling. He was dirty. He used shell companies to hide real estate flips. He laundered donations through foundations. He lied. He stole. He made me feel like I was nothing while sitting on an empire built on fraud. The day of the audit meeting, I woke up early. I had my coffee black. My hands were steady. I wore a simple navy suit and flats. No jewelry. No makeup beyond the basics. I wanted him to see me, just me as I was. The building was quiet that morning. When they brought the Kepler team into the conference room, the air shifted. My father walked in like he owned the place. Until he saw me. He actually stumbled, just half a step. Then froze. His eyes locked on mine. There was this flicker, confusion, disbelief, then fear. I didn't smile out of cruelty. I smiled because, for the first time, I had the power to hold him accountable. I said, calm and even, "Remember when you said I'd never amount to anything?" He didn't answer. Hint. His lawyer sat. The others took their places. He remained standing, frozen in place like a statue about to shatter. I let the silence hang in the air. I let him feel it, because I was no longer his daughter. I was the person holding the knife of truth to his throat. The investigation wasn't personal. At least, that's what I told myself. But the truth is, once the interview started, and I saw my father squirm under the weight of real questions, questions he couldn't bully his way out of, something shifted inside me. I wasn't just an auditor anymore. I was the reckoning he never saw coming. He tried to regain control during the first 10 minutes. Leaned back in his chair, arms folded, giving those tired politician smiles, pretending like this was all routine. I kept my tone professional, but I didn't give him a single inch of comfort. Mr. Kepler, I said, eyes on the printout. Your 2019 campaign filings include 6 donors who appear to be employed by a company you own through a blind trust registered in Delaware. Can you explain that? He blinked. His lawyer shifted. One of his VPs dropped their pen. I don't handle the details of the blind trust, he said. That's all above board. I looked up deadpan. So, you're saying your own company donated to your political campaign through fake employees, and you didn't know? His jaw clenched. He didn't answer. I moved on. The deeper we got, the more his team started to sweat. Wire transfers. Fraudulent property depreciation. A charity used to funnel cash into private real estate ventures. We weren't just talking about a few bad receipts. This was years of calculated deception. Elise showed up later that week. I was leaving the building when she stepped out of a black SUV and called my name. I froze. She looked the same, put together, polished, but tired. Her voice was soft when she said, "Please, can we talk?" I didn't say anything, just nodded toward the sidewalk. We walked around the corner, out of earshot. I didn't know, she said quickly, about all of this, about what he was doing. I believed her in a way. Elise was many things, but she wasn't stupid. She just didn't ask questions when it was easier to smile and wave. She looked at me, her voice cracking a little. He's scared, you know. I've never seen him like this. Good, I said. She winced. Do you really want to destroy him? I turned to face her. He destroyed me, Elise. He cut me off. He made sure I lost everything. And you stood next to him smiling for every photo op. She didn't have a comeback for that. I stepped closer. This isn't revenge. This is justice. Tears welled in her eyes. You've changed. No, I said. I finally became someone he can't erase. Over the next few weeks, the investigation escalated. We froze assets, subpoenaed internal emails, pulled in other agencies. The net was tightening, and everyone in his orbit knew it. I heard from a former aide that my father was losing donors left and right, that his campaign was unofficially dead, that the board of Kepler Holdings was considering removing him as CEO. Still, he hadn't reached out. Not a word, not an apology, not even a denial. But then something unexpected happened. I received a legal request from his lawyers. They wanted to disqualify me from the case. Conflict of interest, they claimed. Personal vendetta. Family grudge. My supervisor called me in. He was calm, but serious. We're reviewing the request. If they succeed, you'll be removed. Possibly investigated for professional misconduct. I sat there, heart pounding. I had done everything by the book. Every signature, every chain of custody, every piece of evidence, triple verified. But it didn't matter. My father was trying to do what he always did, destroy the threat. Only this time, I wasn't a girl standing at his front door begging to be let in. I was the woman with the power to take everything from him. But if I wasn't careful, he might beat me at my own game. The petition to remove me from the case hit faster than I expected. My father's legal team pushed hard. Leaked statements, media pressure, whispers of bias. They knew where to aim. Not at the facts. At my integrity. I was summoned to an internal ethics review. 3 senior officials sat across from me. One of them, a woman named Carla Morris, had the kind of poker face I couldn't read. You should have disclosed your relationship to the target sooner, she said, not unkindly but firm. I did, I replied. As soon as I saw the file, my supervisor signed off. That's not the issue. The issue is perception, she said. And right now, the perception is that this investigation might be personal. It was personal, but that didn't mean it wasn't valid. Still, they benched me. Not fired. Not disgraced. Just quietly removed from lead duty, pending review. A message: you've stirred too much. I went home that night to my tiny apartment, smaller than the guest suite I used to have growing up, and sat at the edge of my bed in silence. He was doing it again, rewriting the story,
turning the system against me.
and this time, I wasn't some naive 20-something. I was the woman who had dug through years of his lies, who had proof. That's when I made the decision that changed everything. I went public. Not through some dramatic press conference. I sent one email to a local reporter I remembered from the old days, a woman named Tanya, who had once interviewed Elise for a puff piece about charity events.
She remembered me.
I gave her documentation.
Carefully.
Just enough to ignite curiosity, not enough to compromise the case. Then I stepped back and waited. The article dropped 3 days later. From heiress to whistleblower. Inside the financial scandal surrounding Kepler Holdings, the piece laid it out. Shell companies, campaign donations, luxury homes bought in other people's names. And a daughter, once disowned, now at the center of it all. It exploded. Social media turned fast. Local news picked it up. State regulators suddenly had eyes on the case. My agency scrambled to save face. Then came the second wave of hell. I got a call from Elise. "Did you leak this?" she demanded. "No comment," I said. "Jesus, you don't know what you've started." "Oh, I know exactly what I started." She sighed, voice breaking. "They're coming after me now, saying I signed off on donations, that I was part of the foundation board. You were. It was ceremonial. I didn't even go to the meetings." "Elise," I said coldly, "you had your name on every gala, every flyer. You posed for every picture. You helped sell the lie." There was a long pause. Then she whispered, "He's going to lose everything." And then, quietly, "So will I." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Because it was true. Elise, whether she meant to or not, was part of it. And I had to be honest with myself. I hadn't just taken down my father. I was pulling the whole house down. 2 weeks later, a federal prosecutor stepped in. Grand jury subpoenas followed. I was reinstated as a consultant, not a lead, but my findings were core to the case. Then the final twist came not from court, from my mother. She called me for the first time in nearly 7 years. "I need to see you," she said.
"Please."
Just once. I met her at a quiet cafe outside Baltimore. She looked older, thinner, but still had that elegant posture she always carried. She slid an envelope across the table. "This is from your grandfather's trust," she said. "Money your father kept hidden. It was meant for you." Inside was a bank statement and a handwritten note. One my grandfather had apparently left in a safety deposit box, unopened until now. "I always believed in you," it read. "Don't let anyone tell you who you are." For the first time in years, I felt something inside me crack. Not anger. Grief. Not just for what I lost, but for everything I could have had, if only my father had let me be myself. But it wasn't over. My father had one last card to play, and when he played it, it would threaten everything. His empire, my future, and Elise's last shred of stability. And I was ready for him. My father didn't go down quietly. The moment the grand jury subpoenas hit, he launched a public defense. Press conferences. Hired media consultants. Blamed a disgruntled former employee without naming me. Hinted that the investigation was politically motivated. Claimed the financial errors were the fault of staff oversight. But behind the scenes, I knew he was unraveling. Then came the final blow. A sealed indictment against him and 2 senior officers from Kepler Holdings. Conspiracy.
Wire fraud.
Campaign finance violations. Tax evasion. When the charges were unsealed, it was over. The media swarmed him outside the courthouse. No more tailored interviews or smiling photo ops. Just chaos. And no Elise standing beside him this time. She'd been forced to resign from every board she sat on. But I still hadn't had my moment. Not really. Until the final hearing. It wasn't a trial. He took a plea deal, less prison time in exchange for full cooperation and restitution. Still, the courtroom was full. Reporters. Former allies. His legal team.
And me.
I sat in the second row, dead center. He entered in a dark suit, handcuffed. No tie. No ring. His face was pale.
Hollow.
That sharp look he always wore, the one that could freeze a room, it was gone. He glanced at the spectators once. Then his eyes met mine. We stared at each other for a long time. He blinked first. When the judge asked if he had anything to say before sentencing, he stood slowly. I made decisions that hurt people, he said, his voice thin. My family included. That was it. No apology. No ownership. Just enough words to tick the box. He was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison, a multi-million-dollar fine, and a lifetime ban from running any organization with a political or charitable designation. When he turned to be escorted out, he looked at me again. He didn't speak. But I smiled. Not out of joy. Not revenge. Because for the first time in my life, he had to live under a name he couldn't control. Kepler was now tied to Disgrace. As for me, I took the settlement from the family trust and used it to start a forensic audit firm. Small, quiet, but honest work. I hired young women like I once was, pushed out, underestimated, written off. Elise moved to Chicago. She sent me a card once. Said she was in therapy. Learning to live outside our father's shadow. We don't talk much. But we don't hate each other either. That's something. My mother eventually divorced him. Quietly. With no public announcement. And me? I got my name back. Not the one he gave me. The one I earned.